Welcome to the Medium in the Middle podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie, the medium in the middle. On this podcast, I share my journey as a developing psychic medium, as a Reiki master teacher, as an Akashic record practitioner, and anything else that's thrown my way. Join me every week. I release new episodes every Tuesday. Hello! Welcome back. Welcome to episode 59. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Stephanie. I am the medium in the middle, and I'm very excited for this week's episode. I know I say that every week, but I really am. And this week, I know my podcast is meant to be in chronological order, but this just happened this weekend and I can't wait to share. And while it's fresh in my mind and the experience is just at the tip of my fingertips, I felt that it can cut in line with whatever else I had planned from today and we can return to our regular scheduled programming next week. But this week, I want to tell you about the Banff Wellness Retreat. I want to tell you about my first group reading for more than 6 people. I think before this, my biggest group reading was 8 people. That was 2 years ago. And this time, people, we hit 43 people. So a lot of things came up for me, a lot of fear, a lot of identity crisis, but I'm going to talk about it all. I'm going to lay it all on the table. I'm going to be raw and real as always. And I do have a few other stories to add in. Let's get ready for this week's episode because I just can't wait. Before we jump in, I do want to pull a card from the Enchanted Map deck. I love pulling from this deck. You guys know Colette Baron-Reid's deck. I got it for my master's course, and it's just my go-to. So let's see what the cards have for us today. As I shuffle, I always ask, what do my listeners need to know? So this isn't for everyone. It is just who is listening to this episode at whatever time you choose to listen to the episode. So you could not listen to this for a while. And hopefully the card makes sense for you then too. So let's see. All right, so I got card number 33, Peaks of Joy. Your life is filled with happiness, so share it with others. Oh, what a perfect card for this week. Joy is yours today. No matter what your inquiry, you will be happy with the results. You're coming closer to a sense of achievement, and you've worked hard for it. Oh. You're surrounded by true companions and events that are synchronistically arranged to bring you to the next level of your life. The world is singing a beautiful harmony. Life is exhilarating and hopeful. Let gratitude fill your heart and remember to share your happiness. Joy is contagious. Holy moly, this card resonates with me this week. I am feeling so much joy. I am riding such a high from this weekend. I am feeling so grateful for my life and everything that's happening to me. I really do feel like I am going to next levels in my life. This weekend was very big and powerful, and I'm excited to talk about it, but this card definitely resonates with me, so I hope it also resonates with you. If you do want to see the physical card, you can see it on my Instagram. I post it every Tuesday at Medium in the Middle. You can also follow me on Facebook, Medium in the Middle. And if you are looking for any appointments with me, I do distance Reiki or Akashic records, all virtually via Zoom. Those can all be booked on my website. There are still spaces for Reiki courses. So level 1 in December still has a few spots left. January's courses still have a few spots left. There's not many, but there's like a few, 1 or 2. So if you are looking for a Reiki course and you want to learn with me, you can still get in the next few months. That's all on my website as well. In other exciting news, the next time I release a podcast episode, so by next week, my new Reiki room will be open for business. Holy moly, it's been a roller coaster ride. It's been amazing. We've been doing the thing. I've been hard at work, painting, manual labor, but it's been worth it and incredible. So the room, I have a week to get it ready. I have clients on Monday, and then we're rolling. We're in business. And I think in my mind, I thought I could just do a few days in person and a few days online, and weekends would be my courses. But it's quickly seeing that I'm going to need more in-person availability, which is amazing. It's a great problem to have. But I need to relook at my schedule because as of right now, I don't have a day off. And you guys know I roll with no days off, but I need to at least schedule one half day off is like what I think I can do and what I'll be okay with, because a full day off is just not going to happen. I'm new in business. There's so many things happening. I need to accept that, but I need a half day. And that's just where my life is right now. And I'm okay with it because I love working and I love everything that I'm doing. So if you are booking an in-person Reiki, I just want to be really clear when you're booking on my website, themediuminthemiddle.com. So that's where you can book all your courses, all of your Reiki sessions, themediuminthemiddle.com. So it says book online, which will be for anything virtual, your distance Reiki, your Akashic records, and then book in Banff is for in-person Reiki. So just if you're in Banff, in the area, you want to come see me, book in Banff. If you want to book virtually, it's still book online. So I hope that's not confusing. I tried to make it as clear as I could on the website so that online and in-person stay separate. But of course, if you mess up, just send me a message and we will fix it. Okay, so we're talking about it. We're going in to my group reading. And I literally don't know how to put this into words because it was everything and more. It was, whew. So let's start with the Banff Wellness Retreat because this is the second time I've done it. The first time was a month ago. Because of COVID, our retreat in May got bumped to October. So I presented on mediumship, but I didn't do a mediumship reading. This time I presented twice. I did a presentation on Reiki and Chakras 101. It was really well received. It was on the first day of the retreat, so people loved it. If you're wondering how we're holding retreats, Alberta COVID rules are still pretty open, so we're allowed to have 50 people in a room, socially distanced. So that's exactly what we did. We set up the chairs 6 feet apart. Everybody had to wear a mask. We set up the yoga mat 6 feet apart, and the rooms were capped at certain numbers. We followed all rules and regulations, and we made it work. So I feel really, really lucky that I was able to experience this, especially in COVID times, because connection is so far and few between where we actually get to meet people. So I'm excited that that was an opportunity that was given to me this weekend because it's needed to begin with. And then in COVID times, it's needed times 10. So Friday was amazing. And then I also help run the retreat. So I work the retreat all weekend. And it's really nice because you get to connect with the people attending the retreat all weekend. So I got to talk to a lot of people and just share stories and connect. Saturday night was super fun. I got to hang out with a real live witch and we burned things in a cauldron and I talked about it on Instagram. I just had a time. And it's amazing getting together with like-minded people who talk about spirit the same way that I do, who can share experiences with me, life experiences, spirit experiences, witch experiences. So this amazing person that I met, she actually has a yurt in her yard where she does witches circles out of. Because of COVID, there's definitely been a change on that, but she runs retreats in the summertime, and I instantly knew that I had to run a retreat in her space. So I really, really am hoping we can plan something for 2021. If you're in the Banff, Calgary area, if you can get here, hopefully we can make that happen. But as soon as I met her, I was like, I'm obsessed with you, and everybody you meet is going to be obsessed with you. Like, let's get a group here. So it was really amazing hanging out with her, talking witchy things, and just meeting like-minded people all weekend who you could openly have spiritual conversations with. You could openly talk about being a medium or Reiki, and people had no judgment. They were just interested to learn. So that was really, really fun. And I was riding so high all weekend. So this joy card really resonates for me because Sunday night, I came home at the end of the retreat. We had packed up and I kind of sat down and I was tired. And I was like, wow, like sometimes we just have to sit and be present and soak in the moment But if you don't have time for that, you have to sit after and soak in the experience. So I just was trying to be present and really soak in all that happened and be proud of myself, pat myself on the back, and really soak it all in. Like, I just sat there and I was like, wow, my life rocks. This is amazing. What an incredible weekend. And this is called work. Like, I'm getting paid for this. This is how I make my living. So I'm still sitting in so much gratitude and awe of the beautiful life that I get to live and share with you. So I'm just, this card, 33, Peaks of Joy, speaking to me. So I hope it's speaking to you and you guys are also riding this joy. So where do I begin to tell you about my second session? So my second session was a talk with spirit. And because I hadn't done a mediumship presentation at this retreat, I kind of wanted to talk about my mediumship journey. I talked about podcast episodes, to be honest. So I talked about the first time. I talked about Josh. I talked about a few of like the big ones that happened at the beginning and then what happened next. I talked about trying to find a mentor, looking for assistance, not knowing what was happening. My ongoing joke in the room was that I knew I wasn't crazy because I Googled, am I crazy? And Google told me that crazy people don't think they're crazy. So if you think you're crazy, you're not crazy. So I had the audience laughing because I tell my little funny jokes. And I made a few jokes where I'm used to being on a microphone, obviously with the podcast, where no one sees me. So I can do weird things with my hands or whatever. But when I have a real microphone in my hands, I was doing some weird things. Like when I said that I was sitting on the bathroom for the one who's the man in the washroom, I walk into the bathroom and then I say, I'm going to the bathroom, and I start getting all this information. So I like sat down as if I was on a toilet, and then it was just a funny moment where I was like, I guess you guys don't need a visual for that one now, do ya? So I actually did get a lot of feedback on my humor, which was nice that people were about it, because sometimes I say jokes to crickets. So it was nice that we had everybody laughing. So my second session, yes, I talked about my journey into mediumship, and then I wanted to kind of explain about spirit, how I communicate, how I get messages, what I think happens after you die. Then there was going to be a break, and then I was going to read the room. So before I even start there, I want to pull you back to about 2 hours before my presentation, and I'm at home getting ready, losing my mind, just so nervous. I feel like I want to throw up. I'm running here and there. I'm double checking my presentation. I'm looking at the slides. I'm doing my hair. And I try to call literally everyone in my phone book to try to distract me or get me talking about something else, or just, when you want someone on the phone. And no one answered their phone. I called my best friend, my mom, my grandma, my cousin, my other cousin. I was like, hello, I'm in a desperate need to speak to someone to calm me off the edge here, and no one's answering their phone. So I was like, okay, well, maybe this is Spirit's way of like preparing me. Maybe I'm supposed to be meditating or not just running around crazy. Finally, my friend called me back, and she was kind of able to talk me down, but I was still like vibing high. I was like, oh, I'm nervous. And she's like, are you even paying attention? And I was like, no, not really. So drive there, I called my mom and I was like, Mom, I'm going to throw up. I'm going to barf. What the hell do I think I'm doing? There could be up to 50 people in this room. Like, what am I thinking? And she's like, why are you nervous? I'm like, I've never done a group reading more than 8 people before. And I've only ever done 3 group readings in my whole life. One was for 8 people, one was for 4 people, and one was for 6 people. So yeah, we're kind of going times 400% here into the big leagues where people are paying to, sit in these chairs. There's a lot of pressure here. And I wasn't worried that no one would come. So she was like, why are you nervous? And I was like, I'm not worried that no one will come. The reason why I do group readings right now, and I don't specifically offer mediumship readings yet, which as a whole aside is still hilarious to me that I don't actually offer mediumship readings, but I'm doing all these things, is that with a group of, we'll go with 43 people, that's how many people were in the room, and 4 empty seats for Spirit, so 47. But with a group of 43 people, I know for sure Spirit's going to come through. I know for sure there's going to be someone I can talk to. I know for sure someone's going to be able to keep me going. Like if I can talk to one soul for 45 minutes, well, now we have a bunch of souls available. So it was really interesting because I wasn't nervous about Spirit not coming through. I wasn't really nervous about my powers disappearing, although that's always in the back of my head. I think we all think, oh, I just woke up today and nothing's going to work, nothing's going to turn on. But I think it was more the realization of standing on the edge of a cliff and this is it. Like, this is my big jump. This is you could say my big break in a way of I knew from that moment I would never be the same. And what's going to happen for me in my career, in my mediumship development, in what I move forward with, it's never going to be the same after this. And even when I was talking to my mom on the phone and I said, like, I'm not really worried. I'm more worried about what happens after this, like the what's next. And it's not even worry, it was anxiousness. You're like, this is it. Like, this is the shot. And this is going to open up a lot of doors for me, bring me a lot of clients. This is going to make me busier and all good things. But it was kind of this is the shot, this is the thing. And that's what made me so nervous, was that I knew this was just the beginning and we're going into the big leagues now. We're going into the big ball game. We're not playing small anymore. I can't hide in my little basement apartment anymore. I now have a space in Banff. I'm a business owner. This podcast is growing. I'm offering sessions all over the world. My courses are selling out. Big things are happening. And I've just been like, la-ti-da, where I knew like Sunday was the light switch on. I was like, now you can't deny that you're a medium, which is crazy to even say because I've been doing this for a while now, it feels like, even though it's only been 3 years, but it's just, there's always that doubt in your mind. You're always second guessing yourself, in the same way that I don't offer mediumship readings. There's so much fear holding me back, even though I know I'm fully able to do these things. So that was like the big lesson before I even got into the room. So when my presentation started, I actually wasn't that nervous. I was breathing and everyone was being really supportive, getting me what I needed, water, grounding me. And I knew the first hour at least I was in the safe zone because I had my presentation and I had my stories to tell and I have the gift of gab. So give me a microphone and I can talk. And I have 59 episodes of content that I could share. So there's never a lack of stories or experiences. And then we had the break and we got into the group reading afterwards. So I totally just, like you see on TV, walked around the room and figured out who was for who. So I gave kind of some ground rules about just saying yes or no and explaining things to me after and not giving me kind of any information, just letting me know what made sense or what didn't make sense. So while I was finishing the last little bit of my presentation, I really asked Spirit to help me out on this one and not come in until they were called so that I actually could present that first hour. Because what I was also worried about was that I would be up there trying to say my first little hour speech and they would be wanting to speak. So I was like, no, like you guys are the second half. And the room was a rectangle, so I asked Spirit to come in on the right side if it was for someone on the right side of the room, on the left side if it was for someone on the left side of the room, and in front of me if it was for someone down the middle. So then at least I knew kind of where I was going. And the last 20 minutes of my session, I was walking around the stage area, you could call it. And every time I walked towards the right, I was getting this dad so strongly. And he was making me very hot because my body gets very hot when I deal with Spirit. And he was stopping my words. So I kept having to walk over to the left side to finish what I was saying. And I said to the audience, someone's dad on that side is not being very patient. So after the break, I knew I had to start with him because he was coming in strong during my presentation. But it was interesting because usually I start to get spirits before I arrive. So I'll always have someone to start with. But for this time, I didn't have any spirits that I could start with. So that also made me a little bit nervous because I was like, oh, usually I get a spirit or two before I even get in the room, but I have nothing. So I also know that spirit does that for like my little security blanket to make me feel good. They're like, okay, we'll tell you one person, and then when you get there, you'll get more. And even sometimes that one person is wrong. They just give me information so that I feel good, walk in feeling confident, and then it's actually not for anyone in the room. So this time when I went in, I had no spirits that had come to me earlier. So I had to start with this dad. So I walked over to the corner and I said, it's for one of you three. And there was two ladies together, and a single. And they were all kind of sitting in the same corner. And I was talking to them. I was like, it's for one of you three. I started to give the information. And they were all kind of giving me nothing. And I was like, okay, I'll just keep going. And I kept getting information. I think about his age, how long he died. He was saying John Deere. Just a few, like, nothing really big, just a few description words. And then the one lady claimed him as her dad. She's like, yeah, that's my dad. She was crying. She's like, that's him for sure. So I started speaking and I said, do you have any questions? And she was like, yeah. I was like, okay, you can ask them in your head. And then she, I guess, was like, she could see she was closing her eyes, asking her dad a question. And I was like, I don't know what you're asking your dad, but he's screaming yes. I was like, was it a yes or no question? And she said yes. And I said, okay, well, dad says yes. And then once that was kind of complete, more information started to come through, but she started to say no. I started talking about like a blue boot, kind of like someone broke their foot. The number 11 came through and just a few things. She's like, no, that doesn't make sense. But I'm like, maybe it will. Like the audience was amazing. They were so supportive. Like I told them it was my first time. I told them this was my biggest group. She's like, that's not making sense for me anymore. And I was like, oh, okay. And then the person behind her was like, no, now you're talking to me. She's like, everything she said no to makes sense for someone in my life. And I was like, oh, okay. So what I was doing is I was moving around the room. I had my mask on. And then when I got to the person, I took my shoes off and I just stood next to them. So then I started channeling for her, and it was her son, and it was really emotional, that one. I was crying, and the son actually wanted to give her a hug, and I made a joke. I was like, if you knew me, you know I don't hug, but he's asked for me to give you a hug from him, and Spirits never had me do that before, so that was really cool. So that was really interesting. I later found out that she was actually a medium, and her son often comes through to like support other people. So that was a really, really cool experience. And then I tried to move to the other side of the room. And there was actually a woman who, the day before I was in a class, and it's not that she didn't believe, but she was kind of like, how do we know that we're not making this all up? And we kind of said, we all are just going through life wondering, how do we know if we don't make this all up? So when I got pulled to her, I was like, uh-oh. I was like, are you ready for this? She's like, I guess. I was like, okay. So for her, her mom, her dad, her brother, and her two sisters ended up coming through. And the big message for her was that she doesn't really feel them around her. And they kind of said, you have to pull us in. You have to call us down if you want that. Of course, we're around you and supporting you, but you still have to like want it. So because I think she was fearful, she kind of kept them arm's distance away. And she came up to me after and she said, okay, like if I wanted to pull them closer, like what do I do? And I just said, you just have to set your intention, like lay your wall down. If you're scared or if you don't want to connect with them, they won't. But if you ask for a sign, be specific and you'll get it. So then I was moving around the other side of the room and I was starting to say this information. Someone died. It was a woman. The letter S came through, a car crash, and something red, I think was what I said. And a few people were like, I'm like, it's on this side of the room. And one girl was like, oh, that might be me. And I kept talking. She was like, no. And I was like, yeah, it's not for you. And then someone pulled to the back of the room. She's like, oh, I think you're talking to someone for me. So I went to the back of the room and I started talking and I was like, no, it's not for you either. And then I kind of looked out to the audience and I said, all right, guys, who's this for? And then actually one of the volunteers was like, I think it's for me. So I went back to the front of the room and I was like, yes, it's for you. This all makes sense now. Got the message through. And then I was pulled to the back of the room. There was a mother and a father and like an auntie that came through. And this one was really cool because the message was about someone who was sick and then who wasn't sick anymore. And I thought maybe it was her mom. So I was like, oh, like it was I think if your mom was sick and then now she's not sick, like she's not going to die or anything. Like you don't have to worry about that. Your mom's got better. And she was like, oh no, that message is for me. She's like, I had cancer and now I don't have cancer. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, so that's for you and not for your mom. And I was like, that's interesting that I just assumed it was for somebody else, but the message was for her. And it was a good reminder to me to not interpret the message, just say it as I get it. But that was really cool. She ended up being a medium as well. And she came up and spoke to me after. The reading went great. So this was all going on. I was reading for about 40 minutes and I kept asking like what the time was. And we had like 10 minutes left. So I was like, okay, I can get one more spirit in. And then I was like, all right, guys, like, I'm so sorry. I wanted to leave time for questions, but we're out of time. Like, thank you so much. And I finished up. And at the end, I was like, I really want to know like your feedback. Like, can you tell me what made sense for you, what not made sense for you? So everybody who did get a reading was kind of sharing what made sense, what things kind of made sense after I walked away. Like the one lady was like, oh, you had said this and this. And I said, no, but now I understand. And same with a few others. And then that corner that I started at, where I was asking about the father, she said, I think you were saying information that was for all of us. She's like, because that is 1,000% my dad, even though it also made sense for her dad. She's like, I know that was my dad too. And one of the mediums that I read for, the son, she actually piped up and she said, yeah, spirit will do that. When it's a big group, they'll get me to say things that hit more than one person because that's how they can get messages to more people. So all the general things I was saying before I honed in on one person kind of hit multiple people in the room until I was like, oh, we're going specific with this one spirit. So that actually happened twice. So once on the right side of the room, one message hit 3 people. And then on the left side of the room, the lady with the S in the car crash, I had 2 people say, yeah, that made sense for me. It could have been my this, that. It could have been my cousin, my sister, my friend, whoever it was. And then I even had someone approach me after the event being like, those things that you were saying, I think it could have been for me too. I was just too afraid to raise my hand. And I was like, wow, like what she said was really true. Like spirit was having me say things that made sense to multiple people. So even though I only gave a reading to, I think, 6 people, more than that still got a message in the room, which was really, really cool. So that was really reassuring for me, knowing that it made sense for a lot of people. The audience was so nice and so supportive. They're like, please keep going. Like, this is so wonderful. They clapped for me. They were all telling me how I did a wonderful job. And I just felt so loved and supported, and it was amazing. So afterwards, I had like a lot of people wanting to talk to me. So I was in the room for about 20 extra minutes. And I was wondering like where the next presenter was. I was like, oh, like I know I finished right on time and the next presenter should be here. So when I was done speaking to everybody, I kind of went outside and they're like, oh, you're done already? And I was like, what? And they're like, you had till 4:30. And I was like, oh, I thought I was done at 4. I was freaking out that I was over time. And here I was, I had an extra 30 minutes. And I was so upset, oh my goodness, that I could have went for 30 more minutes. But in my mind, for some reason, 4 o'clock was the end. So when they showed me their phone and it was 4 o'clock, and I think people even tried to tell me that I could keep going, but I thought that they were just like being like, you can keep going, like we'll stay late. And it was really interesting. I was like, a lot of people said to me that maybe I was just like done and only an hour and a half was what I can handle. And it's also left space for me to talk to a lot of people after, because normally the next presenter would be coming in, getting ready for the next session. So it all worked out well, but it did take me, I'm still kind of irked about it that I finished 30 minutes early, but all of yesterday I was like, yeah, it went good, but I finished 30 minutes early. I can't believe it. I got my finish time wrong. I thought it was 4. Like in my mind, I was like, oh, I have till 4 o'clock. And I had forgotten my little clock. And so everything went literally perfect without a hitch, but better than I could have ever imagined, except for finishing 30 minutes early. And even everybody in the room was so understanding, and I got a chance to talk to people, which I normally wouldn't have. So that was good, and answer their questions. But of course, you're always finding the one thing that went wrong and putting a magnifying glass on it. So in this case, it was me finishing too early. But that's okay. I'm still so grateful for the experience. So that was my first group reading, my first large group reading. I am over the moon at how it went. The first time is always the hardest. So I feel like moving forward, I feel a lot more confident in doing group readings, personal readings. This is really a push for me to get mediumship readings on my offering list. I have a feeling in the early new year it's going to happen. So stay tuned. I'm being pushed by spirit more and more. But it was an incredible experience. So thank you if you were there. I'm so grateful that I was a part of the Banff Wellness Retreat. And that is the story that I couldn't wait to share with you. So it just jumped in line. We had to tell this story this week because it's fresh and exciting. So thank you for listening. Again, my website is themediuminthemiddle.com for all appointments, information, anything you need to know. All of the links will be down below for my Facebook, Instagram, website to register for a course. It's all in the show notes for you. And I will see you all next Tuesday for a brand new episode. Have a great week. Goodbye, everyone.